death, they are 10 times as contagious as they were when they first got a fever, because the virus, it gets secreted from the body through the cells, through blood and through urine and through feces, and that's how it comes out of the body. So it's the death, the funeral, that is the most dangerous for people. Again, sneezing can only stay on a surface for a few hours.
Can you take them 2 seconds? I gotta go to the bathroom. Sorry.
I just want to tell you about, breath. The most dangerous point is birth, the point of birth. So women having babies, because if they are infected and it's passed through blood, and then the risk to the health worker who's helping to deliver the baby.
Oh my gosh, the baby.
So in Liberia, there's available capacity right now for only about 620 patients, and they're hoping to increase the capacity to about 3,000. So they're only at about 21% capacity. In Guinea, there's capacity for about 160 patients versus 260, so it's about 50%. And in Sierra Leone, it's about 346 patients versus, basically 1,200, so about 29%. So everybody's trying to get ahead and create the capacity, but it's difficult. I'm trying to think of what else I haven't told you. In the Congo, they've had 7 outbreaks of Ebola, and they think they've wiped it out there now. So that, this is an old disease. People actually do know what to do, and if they do it and do it right, they can stop this disease in its tracks. So the one thing you should know is, in terms of the infection rate, throughout history, one Ebola patient will infect 1.5 to 1.8 other people, statistically, whereas an airborne virus is 1 in 25. You'll infect 25 people. So the flu is actually much, more dangerous than Ebola is, if Ebola is treated correctly.
With your stats, how do you all, or what's the word on how you suppose the doctor ended up getting infected? Even though he had 7 layers and he had the hazmat suit on, how did he end up coming back
Getting infected?
Do they have a sense for that yet?
Well, this is where, there will be, I'm sure, a lot of detailed research going on later about protocols. I think the Center for Disease Control changed their protocols after that death occurred, and just made sure that every portion of someone's body was covered, and there's a very complex way in which they're trained to put everything on and take everything off. It takes about 45 minutes to get dressed.
Because
And
that's
in
what
the
I
Ebola treatment units, you only go in now. They've changed the whole thing, which is why you need more people. You only go in really 3 times a day to the hot zone in an Ebola treatment unit. So you live and cook your food and do everything like that in a separate place. Mm-hmm. And then you go in once fully suited up for about 45 minutes to see patients, and then you return. It's so hot that you can't stay in the protective gear. Mm-hmm. And in fact, NASA is working on designing protective gear that will not be so hot, so that people can stay with patients, because the workers themselves are losing fluids through sweat and everything else.
Yeah. Plus, it seems that every time you remove and then take back, you're increasing the chance of something coming back into the normal space, the protected space, right?
Right.
Or
well, no, you do it. You have to. What they do is they have to burn everything that they use. Is the other thing is.
So nothing's
creating a huge, waste problem. So, and these are parts of the world that even in the best times, forget Ebola.
Yeah.
They don't have gloves available. If you in, even in Ghana, which is a relatively, strong economy and a relatively modern country, if you are going to have a baby in Ghana, you are going to know that you need to come to the hospital with gloves, with sutures, with protective gear for yourself. And it's stunning, how little infrastructure there is, and the importance of basic supplies. That's true before Ebola.
Yeah.
And then you add Ebola to the situation. And
That's
it's a
something
big
people don't think
problem.
about, the supplies aspect of it.
It's true, they don't.
Yeah.
Medicines and supplies, which is what we do. AmeriCares is the largest in the world donator of medicines and supplies to partners on the ground. So we partner with about 3,500 partners in 90 countries in the world, including the United States. And we supply them with things that their patients need that they don't have the resources to get.
Yeah.
And so what it enables them to do is hire more doctors and nurses to provide care rather than spending 25 to 30% of their budgets on medicines and supplies. They're so strapped, and their ministries of health spend so little money on health relative to what we spend here in the United States, that they're in a bit of a trap, and there's no way they can get out of that until they have local capacity. And you would be waiting decades for venture capital and for that local capacity to be created, and meanwhile millions and millions of people would die. So that's what we do.
Patsy, do you have any questions for Melissa or Juliana or Haley?
I have one question for, I think, Melissa.
Yes?
What are the ways that we can, prevent to, get contagious?
To contain the virus?
So we won't get contagious, from other people that have Ebola.
Do you mean here in the United States, or do you mean in West Africa?
Sorry. Here.
Here in the United States. So here in the United States, as I was saying before, it is very unlikely that in your normal day, could ever encounter Ebola. It's just unlikely, extremely unlikely. And there's more awareness here. And if you had a fever for 3 days and were vomiting and having terrible diarrhea, you would already have found your way to a hospital. And you're at the hospital, they would have given you a blood test, and they would find out quickly whether or not you had Ebola. But it's not something that we need to be afraid of here. There's way, way, way too much panic, and it's not something we need to be afraid of. What we need to be focused on is helping to stop the virus where it's spreading, because we can't shut down the borders of Liberia and of Guinea and Sierra Leone. That would shut down their economies, and it would further cause damage and potential death, So we can't do that. So what we can do is do what we're doing now as a society. We're testing people in airports as they come into the country. We're telling people what to look for as signs of the disease. And it's not something to be afraid of here, but what we need to do is support those people who are incredible heroes in my mind. The doctors and nurses who are going over there to help train others and help care for patients. Those are the people that need our incredible gratitude in my mind, and our financial support. We have to enable them these are people who are walking out of their jobs and saying, I need to go do this because I'm trained to do this, and I need to go save these people's lives. It's impressive.
It's amazing.
It is. Really impressive. There's a picture that the doctor that's heading our unit took on his way back from his last Liberia trip. I guess it was last spring. And the plane is filled with people who are young, and there's a young mother, she, has a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and she left them behind with her husband, who absolutely said, you go do this work, this is such important work, I'll take care of these kids, and you'll take care of yourself, because you know how to do it. And as the doctor said, I'm not afraid of getting Ebola, I know how to actually protect myself so that I don't get Ebola. What I'm afraid of is coming back and and getting a fever, and having my wife having been in Costco the day before, and then it gets on the front page of the paper and Costco has to shut down in my town. That's what I'm afraid of. So.
But you guys, any other questions at this juncture? Because I know there's more, but I want to make sure that anything that you've thought of gets.
I was just gonna ask, can you re-explain what you were saying about how it's more contagious after?
As the virus goes on.
You said that it's more contagious?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing about this disease is that it oozes out of your body in every possible way, and therefore all of the virus is in all of those fluids that are oozing out of your body. And so your body
People are touching it?
someone has to
Yeah.
carry your body. And what they're doing in the Ebola treatment units is if someone dies, 4 people in their suits are coming and, rolling a person onto a stretcher and then taking a person and then cremating them right on site. I mean, you can't have burial even. You can't, it's very, you have to be very, very, very careful about the transmission at that point.
Are they when they roll them on the stretcher, I saw a picture, but I don't know if this is accurate for all, are they putting them in a body bag at that point, right? So
Yes.
when they travel, they're not able to be
Right.
throwing any kind of.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to educate? Because it sounds like there's a twofold, I know there's 100 threads of this, but in a very simplistic way, there's a twofold issue. One is the actual medical containing of this virus,
Yeah.
and the other is getting ahead on education
Yeah.
and helping people in a world where the culture and the community is wrapped all around their ceremonies
Mm-hmm.
understand they have to break those ceremonies down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of particularly Haley's leap, where she's in Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not in Uganda yet, but that's
And hopefully it won't be.
Yeah.
right, and but you have a chance to connect
Yeah, but
with
would
and
there be a
share
way to educate
education.
them so that it can stop?
Um,
No.
or she wants to start, there's Abby's Leap, which is based on healthcare. If she wanted to add a component to it, what can they do to help with education?
I think the best way is to support organizations that are there on the ground doing the work, and with the Center for Disease Control, and they're working in the local language with, flyers. But I have to tell you, a lot of resistance and so much fear there that there are some people that, what the Defense Department is having to do is really protect the workers that are going over, because there's a lot of fear that the workers are bringing the virus. There's a lot of fear that people are taking their children and people away from their families, and all in the name of Ebola. There's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of miseducation, and I'm not sure that by itself is going to just vanish, but I do think that you look at Nigeria and what they were able to do. They were able to go to 26,000 homes in the country and educate and make sure that people didn't have the virus, and that's what needs to be done. And that's really not an American solution or a Ugandan solution. That's a local solution. So we just have to keep empowering local people to be doing the work with. They know their cultures, their language, their experience far better than we ever will.
And they're
All
the
we
ones that
can
be
do,
trusted in this.
and they're the ones that have to sustain any effort afterwards. So we just are there to support them.
Yeah.
That's really
So in Nigeria, it was the people, like the country that
the
stopped it?
the government.
Wow.
The government knew that Nigeria is a huge economy, and they knew that it would shut down their economy. They needed to get ahead of it, and they had more resources than other countries do, and they got ahead of it.
That's amazing.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So anyway,
What are you thinking?
This all looks very informative.